The avoidant will always break up with you. In fact, the better partner you are in the relationship, the more likely they are to run away. This reality terrifies most people who are in love with the avoidant. After all, who wouldn't be scared of losing the person they love so deeply? But what looks like relationship destruction is actually relationship evolution in disguise. The avoidant's compulsion to end things isn't evidence that they don't love their partner. It's proof that they love them so deeply it threatens their entire psychological framework. Understanding this paradox transforms the most painful part of loving an avoidant into the most hopeful. The avoidant lives with a constant internal timer counting down to abandonment. Not because they want to leave, but because their nervous system is hardwired to expect rejection and disappointment. Every moment of genuine connection, every expression of love from their partner, every sign that the relationship is deepening, triggers their trauma response. Their unconscious mind interprets increasing intimacy as increasing danger, and the only way they know to manage this danger is through preemptive strike, ending things before they can be ended. This preemptive abandonment serves a crucial psychological function that most people misunderstand completely. The avoidant isn't running from their partner. They're running from their own capacity to be hurt. They've learned through painful experience that loving someone means giving them the power to destroy you, and their trauma-conditioned brain refuses to remain in that vulnerable position indefinitely. The breakup becomes their attempt to reclaim power over a situation where they feel increasingly powerless. But here's what makes this dynamic so significant for relationship growth. The avoidant only breaks up when the relationship matters enough to scare them. Casual connections don't trigger their abandonment patterns because casual connections don't threaten their defenses. They can maintain superficial relationships indefinitely without ever hitting the terror threshold that forces them to run. When an avoidant breaks up with you, they're actually telling you that you've broken through their emotional barriers in ways that few people ever have. The timing of avoidant breakups reveals everything about what's really happening beneath the surface. They don't leave during conflict or when things are difficult. They leave when things are good. They leave after perfect weekends together, after meeting important people in each other's lives, after conversations about the future. They leave precisely when their partner feels most secure and hopeful about the relationship's trajectory. This timing isn't coincidental or cruel. It's their trauma response activating when their defenses are most threatened by genuine intimacy. The avoidant's internal experience leading up to the breakup is a masterclass in psychological torture that they inflict entirely upon themselves. They begin noticing everything their partner does that could potentially become annoying or problematic in the future. They start cataloging their own inadequacies and predicting all the ways they'll eventually disappoint their partner. They imagine elaborate scenarios where their partner realizes they've made a mistake and leaves them for someone better, smarter, more emotionally available. This catastrophic thinking isn't rational assessment. It's trauma protection. Their unconscious mind is generating reasons to leave before they can be left, creating exit strategies before their partner has shown any desire for exits. They're essentially arguing themselves out of the relationship as a form of emotional self-defense. The more they love their partner, the more creative and convincing these internal arguments become. The weeks leading up to the breakup often involve the avoidant engaging in elaborate mental gymnastics to justify their growing urge to flee. They replay every minor disagreement, magnifying small incompatibilities into insurmountable differences. They start noticing their partner's habits with hypercritical awareness, turning endearing quirks into relationship deal breakers. They begin constructing a narrative where they're fundamentally mismatched, where the relationship was doomed from the start, where ending things is actually an act of kindness rather than cowardice. This narrative construction serves multiple purposes in their psychological economy. First, it provides rational justification for what is essentially an emotional decision driven by fear. Second, it protects their ego by framing the breakup as a mature recognition of incompatibility rather than an admission of their own emotional limitations. Third, it creates psychological distance that makes the actual breakup conversation easier to execute. The avoidant begins testing their partner in ways designed to prove their worst fears about relationships. They withdraw emotionally and monitor whether their partner pursues them or gives them space. They create minor conflicts and observe whether their partner fights fairly or becomes manipulative. They share vulnerabilities and watch for signs of judgment or rejection. Every test is designed to gather evidence that their partner will eventually hurt them, giving them justification for the preemptive abandonment they're already planning. What the avoidant doesn't realize is that these tests are actually revealing their deep desire for the relationship to work. They're not testing because they want to leave. They're testing because they're desperately hoping their partner will pass every test and prove that safe love is possible. They're looking for evidence that this relationship might be different from all the others, that this person might be trustworthy enough to risk genuine vulnerability with. But their testing behavior often creates the very problems they're trying to avoid. Their emotional withdrawal triggers their partner's anxiety. Their manufactured conflicts create real relationship stress. Their hypervigilance for signs of rejection makes them interpret neutral behaviors as threatening. They begin building a case for why the relationship won't work by creating the very conditions that make it difficult. During this pre-breakup phase, the avoidant experiences intense internal conflict that they rarely share with their partner. Part of them recognizes that their fears are projection rather than reality, that their partner has given them no legitimate reason to expect abandonment or betrayal. But this rational awareness exists alongside a nervous system that's screaming danger signals with increasing frequency and intensity. The avoidant often experiences physical symptoms during this period: insomnia, anxiety, digestive issues, a general sense of unease that they can't quite identify or explain. Their body is responding to perceived threat even when their conscious mind recognizes that no actual threat exists. This disconnect between rational awareness and somatic experience creates additional distress and confusion. The actual breakup conversation reveals the avoidant's internal conflict in ways they often don't recognize themselves. They present logical reasons for ending things: incompatibility, timing, different life goals, while their emotional energy suggests something entirely different. They break up with tears in their eyes while insisting it's the rational choice. They express love for their partner while explaining why love isn't enough. They create distance while clearly not wanting to be distant. This contradiction exists because the avoidant is simultaneously experiencing two different realities. Their conscious mind genuinely believes the breakup is necessary and logical. Their unconscious mind is screaming in protest, recognizing that they're about to lose something precious out of fear rather than genuine incompatibility. The breakup becomes a battle between their trauma response and their authentic feelings, with trauma usually winning the initial round. The language the avoidant uses during the breakup often contains telling contradictions that reveal their true feelings. They might say things like, "I care about you too much to hurt you," while actively hurting their partner through abandonment. They express concern about their partner's well-being while taking actions that damage it. They claim to want their partner's happiness while removing themselves as a source of that happiness. These contradictions aren't manipulation or dishonesty. They're the authentic expression of someone whose trauma conditioning is overriding their genuine desires. The avoidant truly believes they're protecting their partner from future disappointment, even as they inflict immediate pain. They genuinely think they're making the mature choice, even as they're acting from wounded child psychology. The aftermath of the breakup reveals the true nature of what's happened. The avoidant expects to feel relief, validation, and renewed independence. Instead, they often experience immediate regret, unexpected grief, and a profound sense of loss that contradicts their stated reasons for leaving. This emotional response isn't weakness or confusion. It's their authentic self, finally being heard above the noise of their trauma conditioning. The regret they experience isn't about making a mistake. It's about recognizing that they've let fear make a decision that their heart actively opposes. They begin to understand that their reasons for leaving weren't really about their partner or the relationship dynamics, but about their own terror of being vulnerable enough to be hurt. This recognition becomes the foundation for potential growth and eventual return. During the initial days and weeks after the breakup, the avoidant often experiences a phenomenon they didn't anticipate, the complete absence of the relief they expected to feel. Instead of feeling free and independent, they feel empty and disconnected. Instead of feeling protected from potential hurt, they feel the acute pain of actual loss. This experience begins to challenge their fundamental assumptions about what keeps them safe in relationships. The avoidant starts noticing how much of their daily routine was organized around their partner's presence. Not just the obvious things like shared meals or weekend plans, but the subtle rhythms of connection that had become unconscious habits. The impulse to share interesting thoughts throughout the day. The automatic reach for their phone to send updates about their experiences. The expectation of someone being genuinely interested in their well-being and daily life. During the separation period, the avoidant goes through a psychological journey that's essential for their development. Initially, they try to convince themselves that the breakup was right and necessary. They focus on their partner's flaws, remember conflicts and incompatibilities, and work to reinforce their logical justifications for leaving. But as time passes, these justifications begin to feel hollow and manufactured. The avoidant starts recognizing patterns in their relationship history that they've never acknowledged before. They begin to see that they've ended every significant relationship at roughly the same level of intimacy and commitment. They realize that their reasons for leaving have been remarkably similar across different partners, suggesting the problem might be internal rather than circumstantial. This pattern recognition is devastating but necessary for growth. This recognition phase often involves the avoidant reviewing their entire relationship history with new awareness. They begin to see the common thread running through all their romantic failures, not incompatibility or bad timing, but their own inability to tolerate increasing intimacy and vulnerability. They recognize that they've consistently chosen protection over connection, safety over growth, isolation over the risk of being truly known by another person. The avoidant begins to understand that their breakup pattern isn't protecting them from anything real. It's protecting them from ghosts and shadows created by past wounds. They start to see that their current partner never actually threatened them in the ways their trauma conditioning suggested. The danger they were running from existed primarily in their own minds, created by extrapolating past experiences onto present circumstances. Most importantly, they begin to miss not just their partner, but the version of themselves they were becoming in the relationship. The avoidant often experiences more personal growth and emotional availability in significant relationships than they do in isolation. Being loved by someone who sees their potential allows them to access parts of themselves they normally keep hidden. Losing the relationship means losing access to these parts of themselves. This loss of self-development becomes one of the most powerful motivators for their eventual return. They recognize that their partner didn't just love them. Their partner helped them become more than they thought possible. The relationship wasn't just about having someone to share life with. It was about discovering capacities for intimacy, vulnerability, and emotional connection they didn't know they possessed. The avoidant begins to realize that they felt more alive, more authentic, more like their true self when they were in relationship than they do in their isolated independence. The safety they thought they were gaining through breakup feels more like emotional death than emotional protection. They start to understand that the risk of being hurt in relationship is worth taking because the alternative, never being truly known or loved, is a form of living death. When the avoidant does return, they're returning from a fundamentally different psychological position than when they left. They're no longer running from love because it threatens their defenses. They're actively choosing love despite their defenses. They've faced their pattern of preemptive abandonment and recognized its costs. They've experienced what it feels like to lose someone, not because of external circumstances, but because of their own fear. This shift represents genuine psychological growth that wouldn't have been possible without the breakup. The avoidant needed to experience the full consequences of their fear-based decision-making to understand why it doesn't actually protect them. They needed to feel the grief of losing someone precious, to recognize that the pain of potential loss is worth the risk for the joy of genuine connection. The relationship that emerges after their return operates at a completely different level than the original relationship. The avoidant has proven to themselves that they can survive the vulnerability of loving someone deeply. They've experienced the worst-case scenario of their trauma conditioning, complete loss of the relationship, and discovered that it didn't destroy them. This experience becomes the foundation for greater emotional availability and commitment. Their partner, having survived the abandonment and established their own independence during the separation, also returns to the relationship from a position of strength rather than desperation. They've learned that they can live without the avoidant, which paradoxically makes them more attractive to the avoidant and more capable of maintaining healthy boundaries within the relationship. The breakup serves as a psychological reset that allows both people to choose the relationship consciously rather than unconsciously. The avoidant chooses connection over protection. Their partner chooses love over security. Both choices require more courage and awareness than the original relationship demanded, creating the foundation for deeper intimacy and more authentic connection. Understanding this process transforms the meaning of avoidant breakups entirely. Instead of seeing them as relationship failures, they become relationship evolutions. Instead of evidence that the avoidant doesn't really love their partner, they become proof that the love has become too important to risk unconsciously. Instead of endings, they become necessary interruptions in a deeper story of growth and connection. This doesn't mean that every avoidant breakup leads to reunion and growth. Some avoidants never complete the psychological journey from recognition to return. Some partners aren't willing or able to maintain their own independence during the separation. Some relationships have genuine compatibility issues that the breakup process reveals rather than resolves. But when the process works as intended, when both people use the separation for growth rather than manipulation, the resulting relationship becomes qualitatively different from typical romantic connections. It becomes conscious rather than unconscious, chosen rather than compulsive, built on understanding rather than projection. The avoidance compulsion to break up isn't a bug in their system. It's a feature that ensures only relationships capable of supporting their growth will survive. Their tendency to run when things get real serves as a filtering mechanism that separates superficial connections from transformative ones. Only partners who can maintain their own center while the avoidant works through their fears will be there when the avoidant is ready to choose love over safety. This understanding should make partners of avoidance neither desperate to prevent breakups nor passive about relationship dynamics. Instead, it should inspire confidence that genuine love can survive the avoidance fear patterns and return stronger than before. The breakup isn't the end of the story. It's the climax that makes the real story possible.